Okay, hi
Hello.
guys, it's the Jew and Chaz.
She's the Jew. I'm the
Jew,
Chaz.
Chaz.
And this is the beginning
What up?
of our love advice and relationship advice. Not
Hmm.
necessarily love, because as she has said, she's not in a love relationship.
Not
So
yet.
we can give advice just if you're in a new relationship or starting to date someone, and we've been in a lot of relationships, so we have a lot of advice and a lot of experience.
Yes, we do.
It does not make us what? It just
No.
makes us wise to the world.
And we've had a lot of committed long-term relationships. Like in the last 5 years, no, in the last 10 years, I've had three serious relationships.
I've had three as well, and one of them was an engagement.
Oh,
So
one of mine was
yeah,
an engagement too, yeah.
so we've been there, done that.
So, okay, we're first going to talk about what
I'm
you should
smoking.
not stay with because a lot of women, and this is from our experience, that
Rude.
truck is very loud.
We have to go to 5 minutes and then we'll change
Um,
to limit.
okay, so you know, we've been in bad relationships ourselves, and we see that, a lot of girls our age, between 20 and whatever age you are,
Well,
stay
no, it's
in.
more like 17, 18, even girls in high school. But when you get out of high school, you can have that serious relationship and get in bad situations like we have.
Yes.
So like 18 legal age to like 25, because by then you should figure shit out. And if you haven't, then you shouldn't be watching our video because you have no help for you.
Yeah. Well,
We
no,
we can't help you.
no, no. You still have help. You just have to see what's bad and actually acknowledge it and be able to say, look, I'm in a bad relationship. I should probably not be in this anymore. So we've both had our own issues. Chastity, Chaz.
Okay.
Shoot, sorry. Chaz, you want to start yours?
Yeah, mine is a major one, and we have a couple friends who have been in the same type of relationship, and I admit that I was in it for way too long, and I forgave and gave way too many chances. But a very common factor in a relationship I've been noticing, and something that comes up, is an abusive or controlling boyfriend. And they could be a girlfriend too, but more often than not, it's the boyfriend. And I was in a relationship for off and on a year and a half with a very abusive man. I've had many hospital visits and stitches and crazy fights, and moved out and moved back in, and I've got restraining orders. I think I had like 3 restraining orders, and I would cancel them because I just loved him so much, and I knew he would change because he told me he would. But I'm not gonna say what a lot of people say. I'm not gonna say that they won't change, because it's possible. You just have to realize what you're doing and be committed to changing your actions and your ways.
Mm-hmm.
So they can change, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't changing, and I kept giving him the chances to change, and he didn't. And I went through a lot. I lost her for a while, lost a lot of friends. I lost contact with my family. They didn't really want to talk to me anymore. I couldn't bring him around, so it was just me and him. And I was very isolated and very alone, and I learned my lesson. It's not a relationship you should stay in. If they hit you once, they will hit you twice, and they will hit you again and again after that.
Mm-hmm.
It is not going to change
At
at
all.
all, ever.
No.
And you should never ever allow someone to do that. As soon as it happens, I understand there's dangerous situations. I've been in it. It's not that easy to say you could just leave. I know that. So you need to prepare yourself. If it happens, you need to realize it's going to happen again. If they have a very short temper, or if they have no control over their anger and the way that they act while they're angry, they're going to do it again. So you either tell them they need to change and they need to get help and go see a therapist or work their stuff out, or you leave. And if it's a dangerous situation where you're afraid to leave, you need to figure it out. You need to hide money, you need to hide keys, you need to do something, get yourself out, and you need to always let people know what's going on with you.
And where you are at
You don't want
all
to be one
times.
of those girls that ends up on the news where nobody was talking to her. The last they've heard, she was in a relationship with some guy who didn't
Was
want her seeing
terrible.
her friends, and because
Mm-hmm.
of that, they had no idea what she was going through.
Right. And so that's one major, major thing that
Big
girls
deal.
don't, realize. And
Your love cannot change him.
no, they need to realize it themselves first, and they have to acknowledge that they do have an issue and that they should change because they want to stay in this relationship. And if you see the changes, and if he does go to therapy and he does get the help that he needs, and if you see the changes, then yes, you could probably work out the relationship. But you also need to learn what triggers them. And,
That's true.
sometimes the triggers will be alcohol, or sometimes the trigger will be drugs, or yourself. You can be the trigger, and it's a very scary situation to be in. I've seen her and her ex together, and sometimes I would be afraid for myself. And I wasn't even in the relationship. I'd just be sitting on the sidelines, and I'd be like, I want to go home. I'm gonna
Very, very
die.
scary situation.
It's
And you
very,
should.
it's not good.
I went through a phase where I was like, it's all his fault, and I never did anything wrong, and he has to realize that he's a horrible person. He needs to change his ways. And it took a long time for me to admit and tell myself that you egg him on and you instigate, and sometimes you'll make comments or sometimes you'll instigate a fight, and that's not fair to him. If you're there and you're staying in the relationship because you want him to change, you have to help him change. So
Mhm.
if that's something you're committed to doing, by all means do it. I don't condone it. I feel that if you're going to want to help him change, you should do it outside of the
Mhm.
relationship. You shouldn't be living with him. You shouldn't spend many quality times with him. I think he needs to do it on his own. You can go with him to therapy, or you can be there as a support or as a sponsor for him, but you shouldn't be that number one person, because the one thing I learned is when he falls off the wagon and you're the nearest person to him, that's who he's going to take it out on. It's
Mhm.
just like with any addiction, with alcohol or with drugs. When they fall off the wagon, you're going to bear it all. You're going to bear everything, the weight of it, and you're going to get the the
The
anger
brunt
and
end
the
of it.
aggression and the resentment, and you don't want to
Mhm.
be that person.
No.
Don't want to put yourself in a situation that you can take yourself out of.
So that's that. Now, my thing, not a lot of people um, talk about. I was anorexic for a good year, maybe a little bit longer. My ex fiance, when we first started dating, I was maybe 130 pounds or so. And I was physically fit. I ran every day. It wasn't like I'm super obese or like really super skinny. I was at a weight that I was happy with. And, for the first 6 months, everything was great. He really enjoyed me. And, we'd go to dinners and we'd do this and we'd do that. And one day he started telling me that I started gaining a little bit of weight, which I did. And I distinctly remember his parents, in the culture that he was, they would expect you to eat. No matter if you were hungry or if you just ate or anything, they expected you. I just hit a spider. Ah! Ah! Anyways, they would expect you to eat, and so when I first met him, he's like, my mom is really sensitive if you don't eat, because at that time, I'd eat before I would go see him, so I wouldn't have to eat again. And so he would start, saying, "Oh, you need to eat because this is really responsive to my parents, whatever." So I would, and then he'd be like, "Did you seriously just finish that whole plate of food? You're supposed to take a bite, really?" Um, and so at that moment on, I felt that I needed to be perfect and that I needed to lose all of the weight that I put on, which was like 5 pounds. And I went to the next level. I stopped eating. Um, I got really skinny. I was really unhealthy. Um, and I was doing it because he would always tell me, "Oh, you've got this love handle here," or "You've got a little pooch," or "Look at your arms. Your arms are getting a little flabby." I'm sorry, arms are always going to
Not
be
okay.
flabby. I've got flabby arms right now. I mean, really, unless you want me to be like weird
Bone skeleton
Madonna
girl.
arms, that would be nasty. I'm sorry. I don't find that attractive. And I was I was down to about two saltine crackers a day. And that was like my big meal, was two saltine crackers. And I fainted at work all the time. I was super tired all the time. I always was sick. I always had a sinus infection, an ear infection, pink eye, this, that, and the other. I was always sick, and unfortunately, nobody really noticed that I was damaging my body. And it wasn't a good thing. And no, my mom didn't like him. I didn't have Chas at the time. And he was also controlling. He didn't like any of my friends. I never went out. I was always either with him or at work. And it was just a terrible, terrible experience in my life. And thankfully, I did get out of the relationship, obviously. I did it I still have trouble now with food, and I think I always will. It's a daily struggle. Um, I still look at myself sometimes and I'm like, wow, I'm really fat and I'm really not. Like I'm not. But when I look at myself, in the back of my mind I hear him saying, "Oh, you've got a pooch," or "Oh, look at this," or "Look at that." And he was very big on critiquing, and he was not skinny by any means. He was a little heftier, and yeah, it was just it wasn't good, and you know,
And that actually,
I still have trouble.
the two relationships that we were in actually coincide with
Hmm.
controlling. So in general, he can control. If he ever tells you not to go see your friends, or that he doesn't like you hanging out with someone,
You should stop.
or he doesn't like when you eat, or that you don't eat enough, or he doesn't like what you're wearing, or this and that, those are all forms of controlling that girls don't realize. There's so many girls
Hmm.
who are like, well, I'm gonna
He
hang out
just
with you, but
yeah.
he doesn't really want to come with because he's tired, and in reality, he just doesn't like the friends. That it's okay if he doesn't like your friends. He's not gonna like everybody that you know and you have in your life.
But at least
But he should, one, be supportive and accepting of your relationships, and two, he needs to phrase it differently. He should
Mhm.
never demand you to do anything. Never say you need to stop seeing this person. He
Mhm.
can just phrase it as, I feel when you're with that person you act differently, and I don't like that person you are when you're with them. That is so much different from you can't be with them.
Mhm. I
So
remember.
they're all just factors that come in that
Yeah.
you need to keep an eye out. And some girls just take it like, oh, he's just that way. But you
Mhm.
need to take yourself outside of the relationship and see it like everybody else sees it. Because most of the time, if your friends are telling you these things that they see, or your family's telling you these things they see, they're right, and you're just too blind to see it because you're in love or you're in this great
You need
relationship.
to step away and just take a step back and look at what you're doing to yourself and realize, take a couple days. It's not going to happen overnight. For me, I was with my ex fiance for 2.5 years almost, and it was terrible. But I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. I was just like, "Oh, I'm doing it to make him happy because I want to stay with him and I love him so very much and I want to have a family with him and yada yada yada." If he ever says to you, "I'm not going to love you if you gain 5 pounds," don't stay in it, because that's what he said to me all the time, and that was my mindset from day one, pretty much. And I always ask that question. If if I possibly were to gain a little bit of weight, are you going to find it disgusting or offensive, or are you going to run for the hills? Thankfully now, with my man, he he's supportive,
We are
and
both in very healthy relationships.
mhm. And even though, I don't regret anything that I've done ever in my whole entire life. I made bad choices and I've made good choices. And I think that's who we are as people. Everybody makes their own mistakes, everybody learns from their mistakes. And I think that, especially with girls, we don't necessarily look at ourselves and critique ourselves and the way that we're
Supposed to.
supposed to.
In a healthy way.
Yeah.
I think all we do is like, oh, this needs to change. My hair is not good
Mhm.
enough, or my skin isn't good enough, or I'm not skinny enough, or I'm too skinny, which I don't think many girls say that, but it's
No.
possible. I think we need to start saying to ourselves, you know what,
I'm
I look good
beautiful.
today, and you know what, this outfit looks really good on me, or I've been eating really healthy, or I'm so happy that I've been working out every day. Anything that you do, I'm really good at giving people advice, like we're doing now, because you're
Mhm.
awesome at it.
Exactly.
You have to tell yourself that you're good at stuff. You need to be supportive of you before you can ever be in a relationship. Be comfortable with you before you can be comfortable with
Mhm.
someone else.
I Once I got out of my relationship with my ex fiance, I put on a sticky note and I put it on my mirror and I